Hey guys, so I wanted to talk a little bit about this game called Eternal Return. A lot of Heroes of the Storm players, streamers, and content creators have been looking at this game and playing a little bit of this game. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this game because I've been asked to talk about this game. I'm not been sponsored by the people who make it or anything, just people who have been playing Heroes of the Storm that started playing this game wanted to know a little bit more about it. So what is this game and why are a bunch of Heroes of the Storm players playing it? And ultimately, what are the things that I wish people would have told me when I initially started playing this game? Number one, this is a MOBA Battle Royale. So it's very similar to Apex Legends and these other Battle Royale games like Fortnite, PUBG, except that this is a MOBA in the sense that you have a QWE abilities. So just like Battle Royales, you're going to run around and you're going to click up or pick up items, and you're going to craft these items into gear. You'll be making armor similar to the armor in League of Legends, and it actually gives you some default build guides and stuff, but you can download guides online off of just about a bunch of different websites, and you can also share guides that you have with your friends that include build paths, build orders, everything like that. So it's called a MOBA purely because you are going to be fighting people similarly to how you fight people in Heroes of the Storm or in League of Legends. The only major difference is that the teams, there are 3 different ways to play. There's always 18 people on a map, and you can either play with a squad of up to 3 people, or you can play as a duo with 2. And then the last option, which you're going to be seeing me play right now, is solos. So in this particular game, I'm just going to be leaving people. I'm playing a character that has an ability similar to Diablo's Q. And what I mean by that is I can dash, and if I hit someone into a wall, they get stunned and take bonus damage. The one benefit of this ability as opposed to Diablo is that I can do that even if I don't have a target. So I can use it to get away from people. So you're going to be noticing a lot of similarities to characters in League of Legends and in Dota, and as well as Heroes of the Storm. But you're also going to be noticing that I am going to be building in a pretty specific way. Not only do I know kind of where I'm going to start, but I'm going to be picking up very specific items. So the ones with the yellow on them are items that that my build requires. But the other items that I'm picking up are items that are just going to be good for my particular setup. So I'm going to be making a lot of food to start, and with this food, it's going to help give me health and health regen when I eat food, and mana regen when I drink water. And that's basically the big piece of what I'm going to be doing in the early portions of the game, is grabbing early recipes. And that's kind of something that I wish people would have explained when I first started playing this game, or I wish I would have known that a little bit earlier, is that you need to know some recipes for food rather early on, because it's going to be important to make decent food, because you're going to get attacked. Usually you don't get attacked right away because people don't have weapons, so it takes too long to kill anyone. But you will get attacked, and you want to have answers for when you get attacked. So being able to have early food recipes and late game food recipes are important. I say late game because during team fights in the end, you can increase your health regen by eating while you're fighting. And if you're not doing that, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage against the teams that are doing that. So learning different food recipes is going to be huge. The next thing that I want to show is always be moving. You can see that even when I'm crafting while I'm searching the next box. And so I'll search a box, and then I'll continue crafting. So in this particular case, I do need some leather. So I'm going to slam that against the wall and take out this dog really quickly. I'm going to grab the leather, but instead of crafting immediately, you're going to notice that I start heading over and I want to pull more things. So I'm going to be pulling 3 chickens, and I'm going to use my Q to take out all of the chickens. I'm going to craft while waiting to pick up the next item, and then I'm going to craft again. And now I'm going to check the next one. This one only dropped meat. I don't really need meat. not in the build that I'm going anyways. And once again, only meat, not a big deal. So now I need to go to my last zone, which is archery range. And like most battle royales, the zones slowly begin to disappear. Most battle royales do this in a circle, and the circles slowly get smaller. This battle royale will pick random zones that will turn yellow first to indicate that it will be disappearing, and then it will turn red, which means that you have 30 seconds to get out of that zone or you die. And that 30 seconds is the same for every zone. So let's say, for example, I lose 15 seconds in one red zone. I will only have 15 seconds left in any of the other red zones I go to. So it is like a battle royale. So again, the big things that I wish I would have known. One, making reliable food early on. Now, after this game, I'll talk about some of my favorite recipes. And number two is always stay moving, right? If you're always moving, then you're going to be in a much, much better spot. Because the second that you stop moving is when things get pretty sketchy. All right. I'm just looking for a couple other things. And I'm actually playing as while I'm talking right now, and I apologize. I'm like fumbling my words really quickly. All right, so I'm gonna be making myself my legendary shoes as well as some extra water. So I'm gonna drink just one of these waters for now. It's going to give me back some of my mana. And that's another thing. So there is an option in this game where you can rest. You lose some of your vision and you start regenerating your health and mana back. One huge mistake that new players make in this game is that they rest way too often. And if you're going to be resting too often, then you're going to get behind in levels. And you're going to notice when I do see enemies, I'm going to be much higher level than they are because the bots don't really move around and craft as much as they should. And so that's something that that you're going to notice. If you get really fast at the movement of this game, you're just going to naturally out-level most people. So the faster you can pick up items and move around, the better. And so the few things that I kind of wish I would have known. Number one, get good at the path that you're in. Well, I'll go back to the tips that I've already given anyways, which were always stay moving and have food recipes. But on top of that, I want to say know your path. So I have full build right now. There are a couple adaptations I can make to this build, but for the most part, it's full build. Where I went for this build is I started in Pond, I moved down to Cemetery, I went to Hospital, used the teleporter to get to Archery Range. That completed my build, and now it's just a matter of leveling up my weapons, which I'll talk about actually I'm just going to talk about right now. So the more you level up your weapons, the more damage you do. The more you craft food and the more damage you take, the more health you get. Pretty much everything that you do in this game will level up the thing that you're doing. Leveling up your search will increase your vision range. And crafting things will generally just give you experience, but it also increases the effect of items, which is kind of nice. So the stats and stuff you get are increased, the food and everything like that. But basically the most important stats for combat are defense, health, and your weapon stat. In order to level up the weapon stat, you just need to be killing things. You hit things, you use abilities on things, and you'll be leveling up your weapon. You'll see that each time that I'm hitting things, if you do 100 damage to a wild animal, you get 5. If you deal 100 damage to a player, you get 63. So it's always better to do damage to players if you can. But if there's only animals or if it's just safer to hit animals, then you're going to just do that. And so you want to level up those important stats, but any stat that you level up is going to give you more levels to upgrade your skills, even though there are certain stats that are better than others. So sometimes I run around and I just check things, even if I don't actually need any items. I'll just check it and immediately leave. But there's 2 enemies here, so I'm going to start a fight. Actually, they're going to start a fight with me. I'm going to stun them, and then I'm just going to ult them, and I'm going to use my W to give myself just a little bit of defense, and we'll take out this person. Now, I can loot their bodies for whatever they've had throughout this game, and we'll take out this guy too. And we can also fight these guys if we want. Again, I'm much higher level than these bots. They're bots. Again, it's not much of a challenge. I just wanted to go into a bot game so that you guys can see what it looks like. And this is a huge fight. Generally, you don't have fights this big. Usually people avoid fighting. There is the third party, which is where people will go into a fight. Now, I do want to show you guys Wickling. Wickling is the boss. So in Heroes of the Storm, you can think of this as really any of the bosses on the different maps. In League of Legends, think of this like Baron, because not only does Wickling drop important items, Wickling also gives a buff that increases the damage. So you can think of it kind of like Dragon or Baron. Wickling's always going to spawn from the research center, which you can see on the map is a spot in the middle. But Wickling doesn't like spawning in red zones. So Wickling's going to try to spawn in Avenue. If Avenue's red, she's going to spawn in Forest. If Forest's red, she's going to spawn in Cemetery. If they're all red, then she spawns in Avenue and she'll run to one of these areas that's not red. Wickling is rather difficult, so I highly recommend that you're very prepared and maybe have food. I don't even know if I can take her out at level 11 alone, but I'll do my best to kind of show you guys how you take out Wickling if you want to. So Wickling now is just spawned, and she's going to run out from here in just a second, and I'm going to do my best to take her out. So in this case, we're going to fight her here. I'm going to slam her against this wall, and I'm going to start eating my food. So you can see I'm regenerating 30 health. I will end up using my ult and my Q, and I'm dodging her abilities at the same time, and I don't want to stand in her poison too long. So you're going to see I'm actually going to back off for a second because I want to get just a little bit more health back. And we're going to see if we can take her out with my next Q. So there's Wickling. Now, Wickling's going to drop some important items. I'm just going to take 2 of them from now. Force Core is something that's rather difficult to get. It takes a while to craft, and she always drops it, and it's used for a lot of really good things. She also drops a first aid kit, which is one of the highest healing items in the game, so it's great for late game team fights. Just activate that before a fight. Now I'm going to start making I'm going to make some food just because I don't really have any food right now. And then we'll close out this game, and I'm going to show you guys some of the recipes that I wish I would have known. So, the biggest things that I wish that I would always know, number 1, what the masteries do, and the most important masteries. Weapon mastery is by far the most important mastery. Health is the next one. Take damage, craft food, you'll increase your health. So, right here, I'm going to be picking up lighters, and I'm just going to craft as much food as possible. Lighters are used for a ton of different types of food. But the easiest one that I recommend just to get quantity of food in case you just really need a lot of food and you're getting some unlucky fights is steak. But we're actually going to make chicken instead. So steak would be you grab the heated stone and you cook it with meat. Or if you find oil, you can make fried chicken. There's also fried fish. And you can fish from any zones that have there's fishing poles in certain zones in like pond and beach. In this case, we're just going to make some fried chicken, and we got 3 heated oil from that recipe, so I'm going to take out some more boars. And I don't even mind if I take a little bit of damage here because I want to be leveling up health and weapons right now. And so we're just going to keep crafting our food. And we'll just move this over here so that in case we want to use that bigger one, we can. And that's basically what we're going to be doing in the mid-game. We finish our build, and we want to get as high level as possible, specifically your weapon level and your health level. You want to be making food and water that's going to be great for upcoming fights. And that's basically it. That's how this game plays out. You're just getting as prepared as you possibly can for the last fight. You're likely going to be fighting someone who's also getting as prepared for the last fight, and there will be boxes along the way in case you want like an extra item. I like to check the purple boxes primarily for food or traps, and that's another thing that you can be crafting. And another thing that I wish I would have known earlier is that you can press B at any time, and you can search for another item, and you can try to track it. Let's say I want to make some fire traps. I can track this, and it's going to tell me what I need in this area. Oh, I need oil here? Okay. And I can left-click on any of these to find out other zones that have those things. And so it's a really nice tool if you want to make traps. And traps is another way to give yourself an advantage for that last fight. Ultimately, all you're trying to do in this game is give yourself advantages for that last fight and stay alive until that last fight. So you want to finish your build as fast as possible so you're a little bit scarier against enemies that are trying to deal with you early. Then you want to level up your weapons and your stats as much as possible so that you're scary and you're going to be hard to kill. And you can build extra traps to help yourself out, or you can also build or make extra food. You can find traps. So I just found some traps here. And so these are going to be really good traps when we get to the last zone. The last thing that I want to share is something that you'll learn relatively early. The last zone is always going to shrink down to a square. And the square will always be around one of these observation units. These things will give you vision if you channel it. These consoles will give you vision of people that are entering in from usually the few entrances in the area, but it doesn't hit all the entrances. The last zone will always be a square around one of these. So if I was concerned that the enemies were going to have a good shot here, I'm going to want to drop down traps here to make this a little bit more reliable for myself to try to win this area. So it looks like there was actually a fight going on here. So I'm going to set down a trap and see if she chases me into the trap, just so you guys can kind of see what the traps do. So this particular trap, she gets caught in, and it does a lot of damage. So you can see it did about 40% of her health. Now, it doesn't always do that much damage. It does just a flat 340, and this particular trap roots. Now, this is an epic trap, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to craft on your own. But if you do know the recipes, you can craft it pretty reliably. Or you can find it in purple boxes. All right, so we just have 2 more people left, and with the bots, they generally will end up just dying on their own. Oh, this guy used his stealth. Oh, he got stunned anyways. He lost like half of his health. All right, so now there's just 1 person left. The bots usually will end up just dying on their own, but in this case, the last bot's over here, and this is how you win in this game. So I'm gonna talk a little bit more about some of these recipes, but I'm gonna show you one more thing when I load back in. I might not actually load back in, but I'll let me get out my paint really quick. Did I spell this wrong? There we go. All right. So I want to share something really quick that, again, I wish I would have known earlier, which is don't just have a build path for your locations, but have a path for each location. So let me see if I can pull up the map. Let me head back over to this game, and I'm going to show you the build that I just used. So I was in this build. It's a 4-location build. So let me go to Edit Saved Plan. We're going to go to the next page. And you can see I need to go to Pond. I need to go to Cemetery, Hospital, and then Archery Range. Well, what you noticed that I did was I went around this first area in here. I came down here. I kind of went back up a little bit, and then since I was already close, I went to the hospital teleporter. I teleported to Cemetery, and then in Cemetery, I went for these middle boxes, these side boxes, and then I went back up to hospital. Now, the reason I do it this way is I have a plan of where I need to go based off of where I spawn. So let's say I spawn like right here on Pond. I'm going to be heading down in this direction. And I'm going to grab everything that I can over here, and I'm going to hit the teleporter to hospital. But if I spawned on the other side, if I spawned close to this, I might actually do it the opposite. I might go over here to Pond, and I might go over to Avenue and take this teleporter. And either way, I'm going to go to Cemetery next. Now, you might be saying, well, why do you run to Hospital and then go to Cemetery just to go back to Hospital? The answer is you want to be able to craft the most important items first. So if I go from Pond to Cemetery, I can finish my weapon. And the faster you finish the weapon, the faster you can actually threaten off people that are trying to kill you, and the faster that you can get more stuff done. In fact, in this build path, you can see Pond, I get nothing done. But when I get to Cemetery, you can actually see that it shows I finish 4 of my items in Cemetery. And then in Hospital, I only finish 1. So if I were to go to Hospital first, I need to hold on to a lot more items than I probably even have the inventory space for. So I probably won't even have the inventory space to hold everything that I need when I get to Cemetery, which is why it's best to go in an order that completes the most important items first and has decent inventory management. This particular build I actually created for this very reason. I wanted to be able to finish a lot of items in an early zone so that I can join my team in duos and squads. So you guys should have another plan, not just for your hey, I go from pawn to hospital to cemetery to hospital to archery, but you also need a movement plan in each of those zones so that you can hit the most amount of boxes as fast as possible. There's certain areas where they have higher density of boxes, so you have a higher chance of finding your items. For example, in Temple, there's a spot that has 3 boxes near each other, and then it has another 2 boxes, and then it has a crate, and then it has 2 more boxes. And if you stay within this area, you can usually finish all of your items in Temple right there without even needing to go to the other sides. And then you can make your way to the teleporter and go to your next zone. And so that's one of the things that is really important. You guys should be coming up with a path within your zone. But another thing, I want to talk about food recipes really quick. So we're going to go in here and we're going to go to catalog, and I want to talk by area. So I start in pond and I move into cemetery. So if I go to pond, what food can I make? You always start off with 2 bread and 2 water, and in pond there is water as well. So we want to look at things and go, well, what can we make? So sometimes I go to category and I'll look at, or I'll go all items, I'll go to food, and I'll just click through some of this stuff. Alcohol, needles. Both of those are in hospital, so you can actually make a really powerful food in hospital by picking up those 2 things. Choco pies, bread and chocolate. Well, you start with bread, so if you're starting in Uptown, Archery Range, or Avenue, you can start off by making choco pies. There are some things that only craft 1 at a time, but they generally heal more, and there's stuff that crafts multiple at a time, but they heal less. I recommend in the beginning you look for the foods that craft multiple at a time, because in early fights you might only use like 1 or 2 just to scare off people, and then you want to run away. So you don't want to burn like a big food that took you a long time to craft. You usually want to burn something small. So some of my favorite foods that I like to craft is garlic bread, because you start with bread and all you need is garlic. So if you start at Temple, Cemetery, or Alley, then you can start off with garlic. If you are starting in hotel, Uptown, or hospital, you can start with citrus cake. Again, it's 1 bread, 1 lemon, and you end up with 2 citrus cakes. The same thing with the garlic bread. You end up with 2 garlic bread. Now, garlic bread is kind of objectively better. 500 health, you start off with 2 of them. Citrus cakes, 360. So there is some imbalances in the different things that you can find. Same thing with beverages. If you don't need your waters for the build, what I recommend is usually making ice water, which is at hotel, cemetery, and hospital. Or I recommend making soju, which is an alcohol that you can start off in factory, hospital, or school. So this is so much overwhelming information to start off. You might be saying, well, Paradox, where do I even start? Well, number 1, what I would recommend doing is looking for a plan for the character that you want to play. And I recommend just in the start, just grab one from someone else. I recommend going into the search saved plans area for whatever weapon you want to use. And I want you to go into here and say uses. This will be some of the most used plans. They'll mostly be in Korean, and that's okay. You're going to click on this, and it usually comes with a build, and it comes with a path. And this path will say if there's any extra materials you don't get. So in this one, search materials, there's nothing left after this. So you build your whole build here, and then you just need to find leather, which is off of any creatures that you kill, and branches, which are available in every single zone. They're just on the ground. And so that's basically how I recommend starting. Now from there, we want to look at what we can start off and have pretty solid food to begin with. So you're starting in hospital, you're moving into pond, into temple. Well, temple has garlic, so if you get to the 3rd zone without dying, then you can at least pick up some garlic and make some garlic bread, one of my favorite foods. But you do start in hospital and move into pond. So let's see, we don't need our water and we don't need our bread for anything. So let's come up with a build or come up with some food that we can create on the way there. So let's go to catalog, and what we want to look for is we can make our water with the alcohol that we find in hospital. So we'll use 2 of our waters and 2 of our alcohols, and we just need to find 2 alcohols to make 4 of soju, which will be great for keeping up to where we don't need to rest. Again, the goal is not to rest. You should be able to complete your entire build before resting, and you should only have to rest after killing like a big mob or after a decent fight. And even then, you almost don't want to rest. Now, when we get to pawn, we still need to come up with some food, right? So we need to find food that's available in hospital. We can make the acupuncture needles, but we're going to need that alcohol already, so we're not going to use those. Now we're going to look for something that we can get. Now, there's orchids, which are actually pretty decent with oriental herb and flowers in the next zone. Now, it doesn't use our bread, and we do need to pick up extra things, but it's actually pretty good. 480 health, you make 2 of them at a time, and you can turn them into healing potions if you pick up glass bottles when you make it over to Avenue. Because remember, this build went from Hospital, Pawn, Temple, Avenue. So if you end up making orchids early on, then you can turn those into healing potions later on. So you start off with a good mid-game food, and you build it into a good late-game food. Well, now you have a great plan for your mana, you have a great plan for your food, and you have a great plan that builds into your late-game food. So that's going to be an amazing plan for Aya, for that particular build that we pulled up. But there's also something else that we want to add to that. Now, that build was skill amplification. So we want to start looking for legendaries, things that you don't normally want to put in the build because they just require too much to craft. We want to start looking for some legendaries. This legendary pistol is not what we want because this was a skill amplification build, and this gives no skill amp. So we don't want that. But if you go down to like legs, for example, there's this, it's called Glacial Shoes. Glacial Shoes is way more stats than the Straitjacket sneakers, which is what was actually used in that build. It is only 10 skill amp, 50% more SP regen. This one is 60% more SP regen, 15 skill amp, and so much more movement speed, and it gives health regen. So what I recommend doing is not only creating a path that's going to give you the most efficient route in each zone, the most efficient route between each zone, also has effective early game, mid game, and late game food and water, but also start thinking about legendaries. Some of the best players that I've been watching in this game will end every game with 3 to 4 legendaries. I mean, 2 to 3 legendaries. Yet most of their builds are complete without a single legendary. So they finish their build without a legendary, and then they slowly upgrade over time by looking, hey, what zones are left up and what things can I look for? And so that's something that I do recommend working on, is the better you can finish your route, the faster you can join your team, or faster you can start looking for kills, the faster you can level up your abilities, level up your stats, and start working on your legendary items, start working on better food, better beverages, and also better traps. There are also vision wards. If you've played League of Legends, you can pick up surveillance cameras, and they are pretty nice vision wards. You can then craft a surveillance camera and a binocular, both of which can be found in Beach, and both of which can be found in just many other zones. I mean, both of which are available in Beach, and then you can find individual pieces in other zones. These telephoto cameras, you just take 2 items and you can craft essentially 3. But the surveillance cameras are perfectly fine if you want to go with those instead. But these are really nice to be able to set down to check to see if someone's used traps. If someone's using traps and hiding in a bush, then you can avoid that, and it wastes all of their traps. But it's also good in case there's like 3 people just sitting in a bush waiting for you guys to walk by, especially for the character that I was playing that wants to smack you into a wall. I'm going to be in a bush that's adjacent to a wall. And so if you start walking towards the bush, I'm going to step out of the bush and smack you into the wall. And you're going to take like half your health. So having these vision wards are also important. So all of this is extremely overwhelming, but it's a rather fun game. A lot of Battle Royale games are fun purely because of that behavioral psychology I've talked about before. It feels good to earn something, and so in Battle Royale games, you're always constantly finding cool things and crafting cool things and being rewarded for it, so it encourages you to keep playing. And so it's a really fun game for that sense, because it keeps you wanting to keep playing, keep crafting, and keep doing stuff over and over and over. And that's why I really have been addicted to this game for the last couple weeks, not too long, and I finally kind of tapered off of it a little bit when I decided I wanted to make you guys a video to tell you guys what I wish I would have known going into this game. It's a fun game with a ton of characters. I personally don't like playing solo. I usually play duos or trios because solo can be a little rock, paper, scissory during the end, where like if you're playing like this guy, you get kited by someone like this, but this person loses to someone like this just because they both can kite each other just as much, but this one does more damage. And it is one of those things where it gets a little rock, paper, scissors. But if you are playing with groups, it's actually really fun to strategize good team comps and answer different things at the same time as help each other with their builds. A lot of squads create squad builds. So where, say for example, I've got this character Rozzy. Let me actually go to the save plan for her. I have this character where I have a 3-location build, and or I'll use the Yuki instead. So let me go into this build really quick. And this build says that I can find everything except for my Stallion Medallion. I don't have this in my build because the person that I queue with goes to the beach for her last zone. So she picks up a Stallion Medallion for me, and in the dock, I pick up the wetsuit and rubber for her, and then we'll both meet up in Uptown, we'll drop each other's items, and we're done with our builds one zone sooner than everyone else. And this is a strategy that's done a lot in the higher levels of competitive, and so this game is one of those that has a ton to build off of. There's a lot more strategy when you play with more people, but at the same time, it's just a lot more fun to play with friends and be like, hey, do you need this? Do you need this? Hey, I'm gonna make you some food or whatever. And it's just a really interesting game. So while it seems very overwhelming right now, I do want to tell you guys it's got a rather decent learning curve. It tells you what you need when you pick one of these builds. It tells you what you need in that zone, and as long as you go from zone to zone to zone, you'll be able to pick up all the items that you need in each zone. So you can see that they have a little yellow indicator of the items that you're going to be picking up in each zone. And those indicators will tell you what you're going to be picking up in that zone. And then just craft the first thing that you can craft. And the yellow indicator will also say what you need to craft. And then play a few games with a basic build. Once you have that basic build down, then start adding in food recipes. Once you get common food recipes down, then start, and I recommend planning them out ahead of time personally, by going into the catalog. And then you go into the trap recipes if you want to do traps, or the legendary recipes. I don't think you can really have time to do both. So if you're playing a character that wants to be sitting in bushes more often, traps are going to be a lot more important. If you're playing a character that has a lot of legendaries that are good, then that's going to be more important to focus on. And that's Eternal Return. This is a free-to-play game, so worst case, you guys download it, you play it a little bit against bots, get your builds down, play it against players a little bit, and have fun. You either enjoy the game or you uninstall the game. No harm, no foul. Now, if any of you guys do enjoy playing this game, and you have really enjoyed it, let me know if you want more content about it. I don't know how much content I'm going to make about this game because I generally like to make videos where I show a win, and because it's a battle royale, the wins are a bit fewer and far between. In duos, I can usually get 1 win a day. Trios, I can usually get 2 or 3 wins a day. But that's if I'm playing for an entire day, and I haven't been playing that many video games lately, and I still want to be playing some Heroes of the Storm. So until they bring out replays and I can kind of break down some competitive replays, I don't know how much I'm going to be actually making content. But if you guys would like to see content for this game, there are some tournaments going on right now that I can do some breakdowns on and explain some of the popular builds and paths that they are using, if you guys would like that. Otherwise, hopefully it's just a fun one-off video so you guys can learn why so many people from Heroes of the Storm are playing this game now. Basically, it's just a fresh thing that's a little bit different. It's updated pretty often. It's got very similar playstyle as Heroes of the Storm and League of Legends, but with some items that make it a little bit more interesting. Hopefully that helps you guys out. If you guys have any questions, let me know.